Hi, I'm Sarah Altair, and this is Mystery Monday, where we talk about writing mysteries. And today I want to talk about scenes as building blocks. When you take all the various scenes in your story, they lead your reader down the trail of the mystery. And there are essentially two types of scenes. There's a proactive scene and a reactive scene. So I thought I'd talk about the two types of scenes and how you want to alternate between them. So it builds a cycle that builds the story in increments. So in the proactive scene, your detective has a goal, and she tries to reach that goal, but there's obstacles in the way as the scene goes forward. And at the end of the scene, there's a setback. So that's essentially how proactive scene works. By the end of the scene, the detective has not only failed to reach his goal, but has a setback that leaves him worse off than at the beginning. And this is definitely one of the ways that you build tension and keep your readers engaged, as though your detective thinks they're going forward, but boomo, it just doesn't work. And this is especially true in the first part of Act 2, where he's kind of scrambling around and trying to figure out what's what. So, and then the reactive scene is how your detective responds to what just happened. There was a setback. He didn't go where he thought he was going. He's definitely thwarted. And so now it's time to give him some space. And this is where he makes a decision about what to do next. So you start that scene with the detective's reaction to what just happened. And now he has to figure out what his options are considering what just happened. And if the setback was significant, he may have no apparent options, and he's totally frustrated, and he needs to look at his dilemma and choose an option. Oftentimes in mystery stories, especially with detectives, they look at the evidence that they've gathered so far and the clues that they have and try to look for a new direction because what's just happened has failed. And then in the last portion of that reactive scene, he has to make a decision. He makes a decision, and that decision is the goal for the next scene. So you're kind of taking a step back and allowing the reader to take a step back and get into the head of your protagonist detective and rethink what he knows so far. So also I thought I'd give you a little checklist for these two scenes, and I will add the checklist to the show notes on Facebook after the show today. So checklist for the proactive scene. Who is the primary point of view character? And stay with that character throughout the scene. It's kind of basic scene building, but you do need to keep it focused. And then what is your detective's goal? And each scene has its own goal. They're like mini stories. So keep it to one goal and keep it simple, because this is just a small part of the overall story. and create the objective of that goal so your reader can visualize the success. It's really important to bring your reader along with what your detective is doing. And as the detective figures out a way to get to success, your reader is able to visualize that as well. And this is really important when you're thinking about building your story. Make the goal worthwhile, otherwise cut the scene. If it's just a casual conversation, you can probably cut it out or take bits and put them into other scenes. But remember, this is a proactive scene, so there's a goal. Your detective goes after the goal, and that is what causes the problem. You also want to make the goal achievable in the protagonist's view. So they see something, and there's a new piece of evidence, or a suspect has given them a new window into the murder victim, or whatever it is. It does have to be achievable as far as the protagonist thinks. Somebody else may make it unachievable, but in your detective's head, it has to be achievable. And then also make it difficult to achieve. Every time you create an obstacle for your protagonist, your reader's like, whoa, well, how's he going to get out of this? How's she going to figure this one out? So, and then of course you want to have that conflict that keeps your detective from reaching the goal, but you don't want your detective to give up, because whoop, end of story, right? So there's always something that's moving your detective forward as they search through the evidence. And then also you want to make that obstacle unexpected. If the reader's going to guess what the obstacle is before the scene starts, you need to make it a little more challenging for your readers. You're always challenging your readers. Your readers are your lifeblood of your story, and so keep them with you, and especially in these proactive scenes, make that obstacle unexpected and but fitting within the story. I mean, don't have it drop out of the sky as something that isn't related to the story. I've seen that happen with new writers, especially. They know they're supposed to have an obstacle, so they make something up that isn't really related to the story, and that's going to be a scene you'll cut. So pay attention to moving the story forward. That's the first goal of every scene, is to move the story forward. So put your hero or heroine in the worst possible situations as they seek what seems like an obtainable goal at the beginning of the scene. So you can give your protagonist a lot of trouble. It's okay. That's what keeps your readers engaged. So, and then a checklist for the reactive scene. Clarify your detective's vision of the problem. What does the detective see right now as what his problem is? It could be wrong, but at this point in time, you want to bring the reader along so they're with the detective and how he sees the problem. Because this reactive scene is all about making decisions. So your hero or heroine needs to know what the problem is before she can make a decision. So it's okay for them to like formulate the problem so they can create a plan of attack. And then keep the reader with the protagonist by visualizing what the character will do next. So your detective may make a checklist of what they're going to do next, or they may, after they think about it, sit down and draw a map of a room or of a street corner, or just help your reader visualize what the character will do next. And of course, the decision that they make should be in line with your character's personality and their values. If they come in conflict with values, that's going to happen in the proactive scene. But for now, they're just making a decision. And then show how the protagonist sees success from this decision. What do they think is going to be the outcome of this new decision that they're making? And make the decision difficult enough that the reader has doubts about whether your character can do what she decides. So, especially in mysteries, you want to keep your reader like, whoa, can she really do this? He's kind of set himself a big goal here. So reactive scenes provide a way for your character to make really bad decisions, which will create even greater conflict later on. So if you're new to writing reactive scenes and think everything needs to be action, 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 these are your opportunities to get your protagonist in some trouble by making bad decisions. It may seem like a good decision at the time to your protagonist, but it's really going to complicate the story. So you can really have a lot of fun with these reactive scenes. They aren't as blah as you may think. So they're the opportunity to build conflict and tension, because the following action may be based on a very wrong decision that seemed right at the time. So the trick to using these two types of scenes, the proactive and the reactive, is to alternate them in your story. So it's going to give your protagonist a break, and it's also going to give your reader a break. So for beginning writers, the alternating may seem forced. And I know I was a beginning writer and thought the same way. Oh, I just want to, the scene is supposed to move the story forward. Let's have some action. But you'll find that as you start really alternating these scenes, you're building a lot of tension and conflict for your detective rather than just physical action scenes. So take some time to think about alternating those scenes. Readers want and expect your characters to have problems and overcome obstacles. So it's the more you can build those obstacles into your story, the better your reader is going to be engaged with your story. And just know the type of scene you're writing and create the obstacles either to action or decision making. Those are your two choices: action, decision making. And it's just going to alternate back and forth between the two. Your stories will benefit, and the readers will love your stories. So that's scenes, and I will put the checklists in the show notes after today's session. So I have a couple of questions here. Let's see. I created a new character in my mystery. He's one of the suspects, but not the perpetrator. He seems to be taking over the story. I can't stop writing about him. Now the story is about him. What do I do? Well, I think that happens to all of us, and as writers, we know that characters can say and do things that we don't expect, and they often add a lot of vitality to the story, and it's fun to write about these things, and this can happen. So, in this case, when it's not your main character and one of your supporting characters, um, you want to keep that character's will of their own under control. Um, so, just like the scenes need to move the story forward, your character needs to move the story forward. So, if they start doing and saying all these things that are kind of fun while they're happening, you want to take a look at whether their actions and their dialogue is really moving the story forward, or if it's just kind of fun creating that character. So, just as in scenes, if there's stuff that's too much or doesn't work, you can cut them out and kind of trim down that character's place in the story. Um, One of the benefits of planning a story, especially a mystery, is that you have an idea for each scene, and you have an idea of a character's role in the scenes and in the story. So as you look over your guideline, plan, plot, whatever you want to call it, that outlines your story, um, make sure you have a place for that character in the right place so they don't pop in where they aren't needed, and that they're moving the story forward. And um, you'll kind of get the hang of controlling that enchanting character. Oftentimes they do, they become quite enchanting, and it's really fun to write about them, but they aren't moving the story forward, and that's your guideline. Get them to move the story forward. So, on the other hand, for pantsers, mystery writer pantsers who kind of want to figure out the solution to the mystery as they write the story, this can be a lot harder. Uh, so, sometimes you can get that character who's kind of taking over and kind of push them back, and you may wait till your rough draft is finished and then go through and kind of trim that character down in the overall story of your plot, because you've taken a different approach to creating your mystery. Um, the main thing for your supporting characters, whether you create a story outline or whether you're a total pantser and just um, discover the perpetrator along with your main character, is the focus is your sleuth pursuit of the evidence and the clues and the conversations to get the perpetrator. If that character is popping up and getting in the way of that main goal of your story, you can trim them down. I hope that I hope that helped. It does happen to everybody. We're just so surprised when a character says and does things, and like, wow, that's kind of cool. Maybe that should be in the story, but it's not always useful to the story. So that's kind of your guideline: is make sure that what that supporting character is doing is really advancing the story. Thanks. A really great question. Let's see. Okay, this is a craft question. I'm confused about writing dialogue. When do I use the three dots and when do I use the em dash? So the three dots, called the ellipsis, um, in text, in dialogue, represents a pause. The speaker may be thinking or doing something, and they kind of stop what they're saying, and the three dots indicate that time lapse, um, as they pause what they're saying and then continue. Okay. The M dash, which is, the long, it actually got its name from being the width of two M's. Okay. The, the M dash represents a break. So when your character's speaking, they may be interrupted by another character, or the ceiling falls down in the room, or something else happens that stops what they're saying right in the middle of um, of their dialogue, and that's when you use an M dash. And it's just like they're cut off in some way, either by another character or by a physical action. Um, so I hope that makes it clear. And I want to thank you for that. Um, yes, it's always good to pay attention to the craft of writing as we're writing. Some people pay no attention to it while they're writing and use the first edit of their rough draft to go in and fix things like that. If you are aware of it and you um, know that difference, the three dots means a pause in their speech, and the M dash means their speech is cut off. It's pretty easy to use those two as you're writing. Okay, those are our questions for today, and I want to thank everybody for being here at Mystery Monday, and I know thumbs up, so thumbs up back to being here. Thank you so much, and I will see you next Monday. And don't forget, send me your questions so I can answer them, and see you next Monday.